Hello and welcome guys to another one of Zynix's Hotlap videos. Today we're doing the Silverstone Stowe circuit in the RUF GT3. Now to start your lap, make sure you get a nice clean exit out of that last corner. Use all available track on the straight. Braking at the gantry, use plenty of the first apex but not much of the second. And watch out for that outside curve. If you hit it, it'll invalidate your lap. For this corner you want to V it, get on the power nice and early and carry as much speed as possible down this straight. Now for these mini chicanes, just hit them straight. They won't invalidate your lap. Braking at the second apex here, you want to get the car slowed and turned in as quickly as possible. For these sections of slow corners, you just have to try and feed the car through, carrying as much speed as possible and watching out for this curb. If you hit it, it will send you wide. Now approaching this final corner, you want to note a few key things. Try not to carry too much speed into it, as you're likely to understeer out wide and throw away most of your lap time. Now we're going to take a closer look at this car's setup. In this lap you'll be able to see the finer points of this setup and how it handles. Now into the first corner you can throw it into this first apex, and then not so much into this final one as it might invalidate your lap. Into the braking here you can slam on the brakes, they won't lock, and just watch out for a slight bit of understeer, but that will allow you to get back on the power really early. Now note here how stable the car is over these bumps. And then into the braking here, the rear axle is bumped in the braking, yet I don't go out wide and I don't spin out. Now this section of lap is where all the time is made up. You want a car that you can just feed through these corners and it will grip, and it won't be affected too badly by these bumps. Now note into this final corner, I brake and turn at the same time. In a GT3 car it is very rare not to just spin out when you do that, so that's plus marks for the setup there. Now before we go and look at the setup, let's look at my lap time. Now as you can see, this time put me first in the world. Now many people would say that this is a driver's track, not a setup track, but after spending many hours trying to get a nice time out of the standard setup in this car, I realised you really need something you can rely upon to do lap after lap, slowly improving your time and building it up to something really fast. Now let's go and take a look at the setup that allowed me to do this really good lap. Now to kickstart this setup tour, I'm going to show you around the tyres and brakes first of all. Now the tyre pressures in this car aren't particularly low for this kind of go-kart like circuit, so you could put them lower. However, I didn't, because I didn't feel that I was missing out on any tyre temperature or grip by having them this high. Now the brake pressure in this car is absolutely fine. Throughout my lap I very rarely lock the brakes, so that is perfect. Now the brake balance, my preference is 55% when I'm driving the Porsche. I think if you have them too far forward, you're very likely to lock the brakes and understeer into corners. Too far to the rear, and the rear is all over the place in the braking. So I like to find this happy medium that allows me just a little bit more locking at the front, but I can control that because it is very little. Now the brake duct in this car is 10% closed. You might have thought we would want a larger value to aid cooling on such a small track, but I found this was absolutely fine to keep maximum temperature in my brakes. Now in terms of downforce for this car, I would recommend that you put everything max. For the first corner for example, you want maximum downforce in this high speed sector. If you're worried about losing speed down the straight, however, that's not really an issue in this track. There is one main straight, but because of those chicanes, you're going to lose speed there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Now in terms of steering ratio for this car, I would usually say it's totally up to you. But because this track is so twisty, I would recommend putting a really fast steering ratio on, so you don't have to saw at the wheel to get around these really tight corners. The caster angle settings are exactly the same as standard. 7.5 degrees is exactly what you want, for maximum responsiveness in the corners. Now the front camber angle is bumped up to maximum. Because of the really harsh turning in this track, you want the maximum tyre surface area available for when you are turning. Now for the rear camber angle, I've put it down to 1.9. For corner exit, we really do not want a lack of grip in this track, as it will cost us time absolutely everywhere. Now I left the front and rear toe angle exactly the same as standard. I didn't feel that I was lacking straight line stability or responsiveness, so they have stayed the same. Now with the suspension settings, I've left everything absolutely the same, apart from the sway bars. The sway bars I've put on a nice and soft setting, so the car can roll and adapt with the harsh turning and the bumps. This will make sure the tyres maintain contact with the road all the way through, even in harsh turning. I've also made the front a little bit stiffer than the rear. This will coax a bit of understeer out of the car, and that will go against what this car usually does, is oversteer absolutely everywhere. Now I only usually change the damper settings when I feel the car bottoming out. Now this track doesn't have many undulating turns, so that didn't really happen, and even under harsh braking, the front didn't hit the ground, so I left all these settings exactly the same. Now for my differential settings, I chose to reduce my acceleration lock to 20%. I didn't want the differential pushing me on in the corners, causing even more understeer, more than what I'd built in via my other settings. Now for my deceleration lock, I have that quite high. There's some really hard braking zones and I wanted it to be as stable as possible. The limited slip preload and the radiator are exactly the same as standard. Now all I've done in the gearing settings is reduce the number of gears. I've made all the values smaller to get more acceleration rather than top speed. Now for the engine, all the settings here are exactly the same as standard. Now because the setup is so understeery, you really want to know what the front tyres are doing. That's why I've bumped up the force feedback settings to 140. Now finally, here we are at the summary page, so you can copy down exactly my setup, get it down into your car and start doing laps like me. Now thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video really insightful and it helped you out. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.